Well, good evening, everybody. Keith here. Hoping everybody's having a good day, enjoying life, living life, loving life. We're going to be discussing one of the biggest elements in my research in the last few years, and that is basically language. And when we talk about language, we're talking about symbolism. Before we think about the spoken language even, we need to realize there's many other things in regards to symbolism. And that's one of the things that we hear in an old adage, that actions speak louder than words. So I want people to remember in tonight's discussion that we're talking about things that are much deeper than just the written language, the visual language, but a conceptual language, both in the way we convey things and the way we interpret things. And so I've got a brother that's going to be coming on, Jeremy Deeter. As soon as he shows up, we're going to be bringing him on, and we're going to be talking about Masons, secret societies, and the various different symbols, how they, what they're meant for, in the reality of how we communicate with each other, and how they've been perverted throughout time through these various different secret societies. Hey, Brother Robert Johnson, there's another one of my favorites when we talk about symbolism. Great man there when he sees the word, and he's able to help people discern the different graphemes of the actual phonic sound, the phoneme compared to the grapheme of when we write things down. And basically what it is when we talk about these Masons and the secret societies, they have a lot of different things that they symbolize throughout the various different logos and such that we see on all these public buildings and throughout all these big corporations and banks and stuff. And one of the biggest things that I want people to realize here is that the bank, the oil companies, comprehend that. And I want to start out tonight with the very basic, simple concept of where it all comes from. And I want you guys to pay attention here, whether you're religious, spiritual, scientific, whatever. Most everybody has heard or knows, in the sense, somewhere along the line, the story of Adam and Eve. And when we talk about Adam and Eve, I want people to and I'm hoping I'm going to be able to convey this right so everybody can comprehend it. My concept of Adam and Eve is that divine source that started this whole ball rolling, this whole big, and it started out with a little atom, a little tiny atom, and it met up, it came into union with another atom, and as they're revolving in their own sense, 6 electrons, 6 neutrons, and 6 protons, the number of the beast. And I'll make a correlation here for you. 666, 369. Plus and minus side of everything. The yin and the yang. The balance as things go up and down. It becomes a 369, a 666, a 963. And it comes to 18. And that's your age of majority. And throughout all the symbolism, in common law, the age of majority is 21. So it was perverted by man from the ecclesiastical, the natural, ecclesiastical, and man. Man is the one that perverted all of this through his own symbolism. So it's not anybody's fault but man's. And that's what it's going to take to help correct this stuff. And that's why we need to come together. And there's our brother Jeremy. And he's going to come on now. Hopefully this works. I've got you approved and added. We had a little problem with this last night. He was doing a video from his end and it wouldn't let him add anybody. So hopefully he'll be on here shortly. But as we're talking about all this symbolism, Jeremy, the atom as another atom come together and came into a union, and things in the universe coalesced, and the heavens came together, and the earth was created. Yeah, doing good, doing good. I wanted to start out with everybody explaining to them how we got to where we are today with all this symbolism and stuff, and how symbolism is not just our spoken word and what we write down. Symbolism goes to the old adage, actions speak louder than your words. That your body movement, symbolism. And so I'm starting out with the story of Adam and Eve. And I want people to comprehend that Adam is the same as atom, A-T-O-M, the tiny little atom in the heavens, as the heavens coalesce. And we hear about this, read about this in the story of Genesis, and how the atoms, the heavens were formed, and then the waters and the land were formed of the earth. And the heavens are our Father, and that is the multitude of the things that coalesce. And our mother earth is the one that brings forth the nations of men. And it is the evolution over time of the atoms and everything coalescing that created the mother earth, that brought forth our nations. And that is the story of Adam and Eve as I conceive it. It is the divine source. And this is what we speak about. When we talk about God today, that symbolism of God today is only a concept. And that symbolism that we see in the word God today, the grapheme and the phoneme as we speak it, originated from the term Ruach HaKodesh, and that's Hebrew for divine source. And when I speak of myself today, if you look at my post today, you'll see I posted a what's called a name change poll, deed poll. And for a long time, people have known me as L, because a while back I changed my profile name here to El Hotep Second Week Pharaoh. And that itself is a symbolism of who I am, who I've determined who I am. And I'll explain that real quick. El, E-L, is the divine source within myself. It is what motivates me to do what I do. Hotep Second, and this all comes from ancient Kemet, which is prior to the establishment of Egypt, both southern and northern Egypt. And Hotep Second stands for peace between the two. And that is when southern and northern Egypt came together in peace. And then there was peace between the divine source and the body of those people. And Pharaoh stands for temple, which is the body. We're not supposed to get. And when we talk about the body, we're talking about that evolution that came about and brought this glorious earth to us. And this is where all those nutrients come from that enable us to live. And if you remember in the beginning of this video, I spoke about the bankers owning all of these oil companies. And when we talk about Genesis, I want people to make a connection here. We are given dominion over the land, air, and water. And every mechanism, everything that, think about the mechanical devices that we use today, they always need a lubricant. And that is the one element that's missing that most people don't think about. Mother Earth has its lubricant within it, and that is the oils that these bankers are taking control of and using them as a monetary or value system against you, along with various other very important nutrients, and that is gold, silver, and precious gems. And so when we get back to the real symbolism of who we are, of what we are, like we spoke last night, we need to come together and realize all this stuff so we can comprehend our true nature isn't in the symbolism but in what we make of it ourselves, the energy that we take in from what is already here and how we project it, how we convey it to others. And that's the pure, simple truth of the matter. And so when it comes to these secret societies, such as the Rosicrucians and the Masons, and people that know these things, these are the secrets of the oil that makes all of this run. And the oil is how well you work within yourself, how you take in these nutrients so you can project them out to others. And this has been a very big struggle in my life. And I'll give you a really brief synopsis of my life. I started out like most normal people. I come from a broken family. Mom was very mean. Dad was very abusive alcoholic. And the state came in and separated my family. They separated us. I had four. They separated us and put us into foster homes. And so we wandered around in the sea, lost, with all these people that we didn't know, telling us what to do. I had this great relief of all of this overwhelming things that had been happening in my young life that confused me. And it confused me even after I was adopted. And I realized they were upstanding people. And it wasn't until my adult life that I realized how much they were caught up in the cognitive dissonance of all this value and the symbolism of that value and how it's portrayed to us. And so the first two concepts that they really instilled on me, and I want people to know, we're going to reference religion again here. I was subjected to many different religious subdivisions throughout my travels in these foster homes: Presbyterian, Methodist, Baptist, all different kinds. And so when I was adopted, they carried that on like most people did back in the early 60s and 70s. And so they had me going to church, and they tried to instill this religion in me. And they did. That's where I get it from today. That's part of what makes me who I am today. But they also instilled in me this value system called money. And they had me go out at 10 years old and get a paper out so I could learn what it meant to do something and be appreciated for it. But like I said, it was confusing throughout my entire life. And as I grew, I realized things just weren't right. And it set deep in me. And I learned to be very materialistic. And at that same time, it caused me a lot of problems. I'm very good at making money. Believe you me. Believe you me, I am a strong speaker. That is my background with sales and marketing. I got in trouble when I was 18 and ended up in prison on a felony charge. And if you know, most people aren't going to hire you if you're a felon. And so when I come out of prison, I determined that I was going to have my own business. But consequently, I had to work for somebody else. And so I went and got a job at a packing plant and worked there for 6 months, saved up money so I could start my own sales and marketing business. Now, in the sales and marketing business, I bumped elbows with some of what people call the elites, the Eagles. Sylvester Stallone, Tina Turner, the Minnesota Vikings, Kansas City Chiefs, Denver Broncos, Jeannie C. Riley, Herman's Hermits, Jerry Lee Lewis. And these are people that I bumped elbows with that my parents thought were eagles, like the lawyers and attorneys, judges and bankers and business owners. These are the people that they thought were eagles and tried to profess to me that, Keith, if you really want to learn how to fly like an eagle, and this is symbolism, if you really want to learn how to fly like an eagle, what are you doing hanging with that flock of turkeys? And I want you people to think about this. When we talk about these Masons, in particular reference to your conversation last night with Darren Calloway, a lot of people need to come together and realize, we lost Jeremy. He'll be back. And in fact, I'm going to go upstairs so I get a better signal. My end. But he'll send me an invite here shortly. So when we get back to the symbolism, I got caught up on all the commercialism just like everybody else. I was caught up in all the cognitive dissonance just like everybody else. But I came to a realization that that's what was working against me. And so I quit it all. And this is something many people can't do because you have other people that you're dependent upon. And they take it, you're a symbol. You're a big symbol in their life. You're a big symbol in your heir's life. They look up to you. Your women look beside them and they see you as supporting them. And I hope you look beside you and see that that supporting. And we do this symbolically through our showing of love and appreciation. It says decline, so we're going to try again. And again, I can go there we go. And so when we think about all this stuff, we have to realize we're part of the problem. We ourselves are part of the problem. We have to become true to ourselves. And that's where I'm at today. I hope it's been a long spiritual journey and it's not over yet. I'm not done yet. I'm not going to his side. Not yet. I have a lot more to speak, and I think I speak it well. I hope so anyway. And so when it comes to the symbolism, I've got one last story here before I let Jeremy come on and speak his word. As children, we're very innocent. And I want people to think about the movie The Sixth Sense. I'm sure we've all watched or heard of it, Sixth Sense, with Bruce Willis. And the little kid in that movie that says, I see dead people. I was a friend the other day, a brother, and I was speaking to his mother, his wife's mother, in regards to one of the children that she has, that he takes care of, a little 7-year-old boy. And she was relaying me to his innocence of how society subjects him and lineates him down one path that is skewed and has him confused, just like it had me confused. And she portrayed this story of this little stool thing being taught to shove this little round peg into a round hole, a square peg into a square hole, a triangular peg into a triangular hole, and the star peg into the star hole. And he was the problem, according to society, because he found his own solution to the final objective of getting those pegs in that box, because he took the lid off the box and put them all in the box at once instead of one at a time. And so he was the problem, but he's blameless. He didn't skew from the way. He was only doing what he was told and doing things in a simple manner. It's us that make things difficult. And so I tell you, it was very profound when this 7-year-old kid looked at me later that day and said, and I quote, most people are dead all their life. Most people are dead all their. One more time. This is coming from a 7-year-old, an innocent child. Most people are dead all their life. Now we, as adults, see that as symbolism, most generally. And I tell you, I profess to you, I think it's backwards. I think you're backwards. I think that child was telling the truth. And we confuse things by using symbolism. And that's as simple as it gets. I hope you guys comprehend that. I really do. Because it's the truth behind what we need to do to come together. Is be true to ourselves and profess to ourselves and others how we really see things in our own innocence. And with that, brother, I yield on to you. God bless. Thanks for coming on.
Man, I appreciate you having me, and I hope that people really look into what you're saying. I'm a Christian, And I am familiar with a lot of the research that you were just talking about, where it talks about the atoms are the atoms that are the small molecular level building, the goo that we're made of. And that is also representative of the atoms, which were actually people. So I hope people look more into that. I hope that they don't dismiss that. And when they talk about the Masons and they talk about knowledge that stays behind the doors of the lodges, I think that you're touching on some of it. And so I hope that without people being Masons, they'll look into some of this. um, so let me run through some research here. And so uh, if you guys are wanting to,
I'm breaking up there, brother. Yeah, give him a minute, folks. That's one of the problems with the symbolism of these devices. We don't get that straight through vibration. We got to deal with the electronics. Jeremy's Jeremy's uh, very blessed in his words as well, and he's diligent in his research. Yeah, it looks like he's yeah, it looks like he's working on fixing that signal on his end. Um, it's breaking up a little bit. Yeah, see, we lost him again. Shows that he's still there, so he's probably still got audio and can watch. Yeah, he clicked up. Yeah, adios. Yeah, see, that's what I like about you, brother. Adios. Not audio, it's adios. Okay, we're going to bring him back on. Um, Hopefully, he's moved to a better place that gives him a better signal because what he's got to say is very important. Um, I love this man. He's a great brother. And I hope people really take heed of what he's saying because, like I said in the title of the post, we're talking about symbolism. And we really need to comprehend what we're doing, both in interpreting what others are putting forth to us and how we convey ourselves throughout the various different symbolisms, whether it be our actions, actions speak louder than words, whether it be speaking verbally, knowing how to speak those words, Ruach HaKodesh, um, is Hebrew, and its English conversion has been perverted down to one thing, whereas that's a term of two words, divine source. And so today we lose that, the reality of that symbolism. We're still trying to add you there, Jeremy, but we have to realize the perversions through the symbolisms so that we can come back to the truth of everything. And that's why I try to express upon everybody um, when you're doing your research. The importance, the important things that I see is to get back to the roots of everything, and that is the root cause, which is etiology, Etiology, um, root words, which is etymology, Etymology. And if you guys have any questions with the root words and etymology in regards to phonemes and graphemes, speak to my brother Robert Johnson here. He's awesome with that. And then, of course, the third one that I always speak on is epistemology, Epistemology, and that is root knowledge. And this is what brings us to the point throughout our lives of experience to what we call today wisdom, which is wise dominion of all that symbolism. So think about this stuff, people. We really need to come together throughout all of this. It says it's still trying to add, Jeremy. I'm going to go upstairs and see if that makes a difference. Hopefully it will. Sometimes it's just a matter of coming a little bit closer. We'll find out here. If not, I'll go ahead and X out of this invite you sent or request that you sent and see if we can go and send you a request or an invite from this end. And I'll see if we can get rid of that light. Do it this way, I think. Maybe we do this. That's a little better. Yeah, it's not wanting to bring you on, Jeremy. Matter of fact, it looks like it might have even booted you off. I'm going to exit out. See if I can come up and invite you. See what we get here. Sometimes it's just a matter of converting around this AI. And hopefully he's there. Okay, I sent an invite out to him. We'll see if we can get him on. Oh, there he is. Try again. Adding. We'll see what happens. Yes, your single cell. There he is. Yes,
Is this any better?
Celled organism. All right, back to Jeremy. Like I said, our brother Jeremy, great man, and I hope everybody listens to him. The symbolism that he speaks of and on and with today, I think he speaks in a clear truth, and I hope everybody listens to him. I yield, and you have the floor, brother.
Hey, bro, is this any better?
Much better, much better.
Ah, all right. I changed my connection, so. All right. I realize we've been bouncing back and forth here. I don't want to take up all of everybody's night, but I do want to give some information that you guys may be interested in. So this will help with research. A lot of what people have a problem with the Masons about goes to putting the Great Seal on our money. When everybody saw, and this was FDR and a friend of his who were both Masons. FDR was not the president at the time, and he was approached with the idea to put the seal on the money. When he became the president, he kind of actually did it as a favor to another lodge. And this is where we get our pyramid with the all-seeing eye. And the Masons say that the pyramid represents strength and endurance. And that was why they put the Great Seal on the money, because it was saying that they want the United States of America to have strength and endure. That it wasn't a great conspiracy, it wasn't anything like that. But the problem that people have is that on the Great Seal at the bottom, it says Novus Ordo.
Uh-oh.
Now it's freezing when I get messages. I get a message in a group chat, and now it's freezing me for no reason.
Norvis part, brother.
Yeah, Novus Ordo Seclorum, which everyone says was the announcement of the birth of a new order. Well, this was the new world. When you were in Europe and when you were on merchant ships, they would say, "Hey, are you going to the new world?" And that was these lands. This was 60 years after the Spanish conquistadors ran roughshod over the land and killed, pillaged, plundered, raped, stole. And they said, "Hey, the Spanish are done. Are you going to go to the new world?" So they were announcing the birth of a new order, of a new world. Uh, so it's up to everybody's interpretation is to if you think that's nefarious or not. Um, Let me see. The Freemasons in the 20th century are the who's who of industry, politics, and government. Any industry, any branch of government, you find Freemasons. U.S. presidents, world leaders, visionaries such as Einstein. Um, it's been quoted as a gallery of American development in the 20th century is basically a gallery of Masons. From the St. Louis Arch that was built to, architectural design for our roadways, it comes from anybody above the third degree of Master Mason or a Master Mason or above. Their influence is just untold. So there are 6 million worldwide Freemasons, and that's a low estimate. They're most powerfully rooted in the United States. 14 of 44 U.S. presidents were in the 20th century were Masons. William McKinley, Warren Harding, Howard Taft, Theodore and Franklin Roosevelt, Harry Truman, Gerald Ford, just to name a few of those. The origins of the Masons are mysterious. They are the largest, oldest, and best known gentlemen's fraternity in the world, but their origins are said to be around the time of the making of Solomon's Temple. Now, some say that the myth says that they came possibly before that. Uh, so there's he was the Grand Master of the lodge in Washington D.C. His name was Akram Elias, and he says that the roots of Freemasonry are in ancient Egypt, and the two greatest achievements of the early Egyptian Masons were pyramids and obelisks, and that's why you're talking about the symbols. Pyramids and obelisks are the symbols used in Freemasonic rituals and rites and ceremonies. And this relates to the building of your inner temple. Sorry, go ahead.
Real quick, I want to interject here. Remember, I told you the story about the little 7-year-old that was plugging a square peg into a square hole, a
Yeah,
triangular peg into a triangular hole, a circular peg into a circular hole, and the star peg into the star hole? Think
yeah,
about the construction of the pyramid itself. It is based on a square foundation with triangles, and you draw a circle, and there's numerology about it, and it speaks about the stars. That's symbolism right there, and we don't even see it. This is why
yeah.
it's important to see everything. I believe this little 7-year-old saw that stuff.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it sounds like it. So, for as much as there's literal meaning, most of it would be in the symbolic interpretation. Um, so, the origin point for modern um, Freemasonry is said to have started in the 1600s around the Reformation. From academics to merchants to intellectuals to politicians and clergy, they all got together to discuss the civics of the time, the religions of the time, the social issues of the time, and the sciences of the time. And they had to do it outside of the control of the church and the aristocracy. They make no mistake, they did this under threat of death and incredible pain to sit there and do that and defy the church by disseminating information that would go against the dogma of the church, trying to continually control people with a lack of information. They knew that was happening, so they got together and they said, you know what, there's more to it than what we're being told. And you could be killed if you were caught. The Masons have it, and this is something I'm going to come back to this. Please remember that I said this. The Masons have a history of rebellion. They have a history of bucking the system. I mean, from day one, what we can find on these folks, they are rebels. And I'm going to come back to that. That's very important. They started to show major influence in America where it was open in public in the mid 18th century. This is corroborated by different research. They all say around the 1720s was when the Masons really started to publicly show themselves here. Because the first publicly proclaimed lodges in America were in the 1720s. The 18th century is claimed to be the age of enlightenment by most Grand Masters, and this is the claim of the Masons. They say that in the age of enlightenment, it would not have happened without Freemasons. That they promoted and propagated by the means of Masonic ritual and influence. They played a very important role in the ideas and principles of the entire Enlightenment period. That it was them, it was their influence that and their ability to disseminate information that brought people out of the Dark Ages. Now, here's some things about Masons specifically. I had mentioned yesterday in the video that if you're walking up to a courthouse, you'll go up 3 steps, there'll be a landing, there'll be 5 steps, there'll be a landing, there'll be 7 steps. This has to do with the 7 arts and sciences that all Masons are supposed to study. You're supposed to study 7 of them. So those are your 7 arts and sciences. You're supposed to study 3 types of communication, and it would be grammar, rhetoric, and logic. And this is so that the Mason thinks in a certain type of way, that they deduce in a certain type of way and communicate in a certain type of way. The original universal symbol for the Masons is the square and compass, and everybody knows that. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Real quick here, I just talked about etiology, etymology, and epistemology. Grammar, rhetoric,
logic.
Yep. Logic, yep. Roots.
It's nice to bounce back and forth off of each other like that, man. All right, so the compass is what you use to draw a circle around yourself. This creates a boundary. Okay, if you go outside of that boundary, you can lose control. But you can, because it's a compass and it's a tool, you can make the circle around you larger. You can broaden your horizons. And this is the main tool of the individual is the compass. This is your moral compass. So that's the compass that draws that boundary around you. Yeah, yeah. And you achieve your compass and you achieve the broadening of your circle by seeking knowledge and light. Now, I'm quoting from the Grand Master of the Lodge in DC. So if you want to broaden your boundary, you have to seek knowledge and light. Now, the square is the symbol of wisdom. It's also known as the square of virtue. And the G that you see in between the 2 tools is the G for the grand architect of the universe, otherwise known as God, but they say the grand architect. The idea of, and I'm quoting here again. What's that?
Divine source. I was just explaining how Ruach HaKodesh is a term. It's 2 words that today we know as God, but has been perverted into the one word. But the G in that stands for grand design.
Architect. Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah, grand architect.
So the idea of the Masons is to create free, and again, I'm doing a lot of quoting here. I don't want people to think I'm giving my opinion. I'm giving the research and then the quotes from the different Masons. The idea of the Masons is to create free-thinking people. This is again in their words. Now, remember what I said about the Masons being a rebellious organization from day one. It's very important because they say this is the best way to fight any form of tyranny over the mind of man, right? So that you have these tools, and basically it's to keep tyranny out of your life. So these are rebels that want to keep tyranny out of their lives. So the Sons of Liberty out of Pennsylvania and Boston, they dedicated their lives to protecting the rights of colonists from British tyranny. They met at the Green Dragon Tavern in Boston. That tavern was bought by St. Andrew's Masonic Lodge. When was it bought? In the 1760s. So that's 16 years before there was any rebellion happening in Boston. That had been owned by the Masons. This is the lodge, the lodge. There is no other foremost lodge when you talk about the rebellion against the Brits. This was the ground zero for the rebellion and ignited the most prolific act of rebellion and infamous act of rebellion in history. And I have to wonder, well, I'll get to my question here in a second. Paul Revere was the lodge master, and he was also a silversmith. He was a professional engraver. He was a master mason at a young age, and when they bought that lodge, they gave it under the care of Paul Revere. The Boston Tea Party was planned at the Green Dragon Tavern. And again, the Green Dragon Tavern was a Masonic building. It's important that people know that all of those meetings, Sam Adams, John Adams, everybody, Paul Revere, everybody, when they met, they were Masons and they were meeting in a Masonic building. That's important that people know that. Ben Franklin, George Washington were both Masons. 33 of 74 of Washington's generals were Masons. That's 46%. 9 out of the 56 signers of the U.S. Constitution, that's 1/3, were Masons. Ben Franklin, a household name, was America's first master Mason. He was the first American provincial Mason. The first Masonic book published in the U.S. was published by Ben Franklin. It was a copy of James Anderson's Constitutions. This has been called the most influential book ever published inside of the United States proper. In 1717, London Freemasons formed their first official lodge and their first Grand Lodge. Then they hired a man to write a set of constitutions by which the Freemasons would live. This was to set their compass. Anderson's constitutions were written in 1723. They were finished in 1723. And if you look at our United States Constitution and Declaration of Independence, they don't just mirror the Anderson's constitutions, they damn near plagiarized all of it. Since the existence of the U.S. Masonic influence in the nation, it has been both pervasive and profound. You cannot, under any circumstances, say that the Masons weren't integral to the framework, the founding, and the maintenance of the United States of America. George Washington was 20 years old when they blindfolded him, and he took his Masonic blood oath of secrecy. He was blindfolded, led to a door. He had to knock 3 times. He was led into a room with a sharp knife against his naked left breast. Then he takes the obligation of the altar. Now, there's another name for the obligation of the altar. I'll get to that. The blindfold was then removed. He was finally allowed to see all of the men at his lodge, and this is the initiation ritual. And so what they do is they blindfold you, they take you into the room, you're kneeling, they've got a knife to your left breast, and then you do some words, you have to do your own decrees at the altar. And then once you say those words, they take off your blindfold, and now you get to see who all the Masons are that are around you that you probably see every single day and had no idea that they were Masons. but when you look at them, they're all pointing their swords at you. And this is to remind you to remember your oath to secrecy. This reinforces that obligation. So when you enter a lodge and you're in that room is called the Tyler's room. Tylers, Tyler's room. And then this is where there'll be an officer standing there. He's called the Tyler. He's armed with a sword, and he is waiting for a password and a secret handshake. Now, the handshake is not really a handshake. It's a grip. It's a way that you grip. The initiation involves a series of ritual challenges. These are things that you have to remember. You have to learn how to decode and decrypt as well. You have a sacred obligation, and then you have the imparting of certain information. So basically, they're going to ask you to say something that is very vulnerable for you to share. And you're going to share that in front of everybody. And this is to solidify the bonds that you have with the rest of your fellow Masons. It's also to solidify trust. Now, they say this is to enlighten the candidate, the initiate. So if you're a Mason, then you understand a little bit better what that means, I suppose. If a man can't be trusted, now you'll hear this in every lodge. You will hear this from every Mason if you can get them to talk. They will tell you, if a man can't be trusted with something as simple as a password or a handshake, then they can't be trusted with the big things in life. This is another way that they try to bring trust between each other. This brotherhood does not work without trust. That's also very important. All Masonic lodges face east. All Masonic lodges face east. Go by in your town, look at your Masonic lodge, see which way it's facing. It's facing east. So once you're led, and this is back to the initiation ritual, the initiates are led to the altar in the room's center. There's a Bible, a Christian Bible on the altar. They assume the obligation of their individual degrees, and there are 3 degrees. The first is the entered apprentice. The second is the fellow craft. And then the third is the master mason. I don't have a whole lot left here, and I didn't get to finish my research. I apologize. I just kind of wanted to give everybody an idea of who the Masons were if they weren't privy to this information before. So initiation rituals also include the reenactment of the murder of Hiram Abiff. Hiram Abiff was a master mason who was sent to do a special job, and it was an architectural job. There were people there that were jealous of his skill, and they decided to torture him. And even under torture, the man would not reveal his secrets of the Freemasons. So the Freemasons kind of revere him today, and they tell his story to the initiates again to reinforce trust. That Hiram was a master mason, he didn't open his mouth, he was being mugged, and then he was being tortured, and he never said any of the secrets. He wouldn't tell a handshake, he wouldn't tell anything, and they ended up killing him. He was conspired against, he was tortured to death. Now, have you, for anybody listening, if you've ever heard, and this may be a little bit, dated, I believe Mr. Little and myself are familiar with this. If you're a little bit younger, maybe you're not. But have you ever heard anybody say, man, that guy really gave him the 3rd degree? Well, people say that that has to do with a 3rd degree burn. No, the origins of the 3rd degree is that when you go into that 3rd degree to become a master mason, part of that ceremony is your brothers give you hell, and you have to be able to take it. And if you can take it, then you receive your 3rd degree as a master mason. But that's where that comes from. Getting the 3rd degree has to do with getting the 3rd degree in masonry, becoming a master mason. Just thought that would be interesting for people to know.
Yeah, that's where throw the book at him comes too.
Yeah, and they say basically, like, really, they really work you over, and if you can take it, then it means you know how to keep your mouth shut. So they don't want snitches. They teach, now you're gonna like this. You're really gonna like this. They teach temperance, fortitude, prudence, and justice. And you'll see these four things listed on what's called the Masonic record, which is kind of where they go through their history and some of their culture and ethics. The symbols hide universal truths. Now, what did Mr. Little just say to you in the beginning of this video? He's talking about the symbols. He's talking about really understanding them. Now we have a grand master saying symbols hide universal truths. These are universal truths. These aren't just Christian truths or Masonic truths or truths for men or truths for women. These are universal truths. And this a claim being made by highly intellectual people, which means that you can find this knowledge yourself. You don't have to step foot into a lodge. The lodge may want to guide you, right? But you could do this by yourself. So each individual gets to discern on their own the universal truths from the symbols.
Our police are trained to discretion. Our police are trained to use their own discretion. And a lot of our police force are Masons, and they are, like I said, trained to use their own discretion.
Yeah. And now, okay, so we talked about the compass, and then we have the square. And a Mason is taught to be on the square and stressed that it's the right angle. So you can get the play on words there.
Yep. There's a pig pen code that they use based on right angles.
Yeah, and the Mason says that you circumscribe your character by drawing a boundary that you will not cross in your daily lives. So this is your morality. This is your compass, the square that keeps you on the right path. President Henry Wallace was a Mason. Hence, the Great Seal on our money was a way to express the original values of the American Republic as the Mason understood them. So I apologize. That's where my research for this ended. I had a bit more to go through, and I didn't have time. A buddy of mine showed up this morning to take me to the Ohio State football game, and that's where I spent the first half of my day. Go ahead.
You had mentioned something. You had mentioned something about the Tyler's room. You wanted to go back and mention something about Tyler's.
So the Tyler and the Tyler's room is that would be the first room that you would enter into the lodge room. And so each room through those series of rooms has different names, different functions, and different purposes. Well, as you're building your temple, as you're building your own moral compass, you start to, as you move up in the Masonic order, you start to have access to more rooms in the lodge and their purposes. This is symbolic of your time, your energy existing, going through and progressing and getting better and getting access to more knowledge and more light, and then expanding your compass and expanding your boundary. Everything for the Mason is symbolic, and a lot of what you were talking about, like Elohim, and it's supposed to be, El means God, and Elohim means many gods. They understand that Hebrew. They understand old ancient writings, and then how you were saying the English interpretation is mostly inaccurate. You're absolutely correct. And the Masons held on to the knowledge that interprets the symbols and the meanings correctly. So here's my questions. How are the Masons not nefarious if they're keeping that knowledge to themselves? This is a common question that people ask all of the time. Here's my answer that I've gotten from the Masons. If you have the keys to the castle, you don't give them out to everybody, because evil exists in the world. They're not going to let everybody into their group. They're not going to allow everybody those keys, that knowledge, that light, because there's too many people that would use it for evil purposes. So them having knowledge and maintaining the knowledge all of these years doesn't by itself make them a nefarious organization whatsoever. Even seeing a nation in decline where they feel like maybe we could disseminate some of this information and maybe pick up our nation again, they don't, the ones I've talked to said that they don't feel that that's safe, that even to try to pick up the nation right now, they would be ineffective because, and the way it was said to me, and people may not like this, but it's the caliber of man that's showing up at the lodges in 2019 going into 2020 that the lodges are disappointed in, that they're
Right.
not able to recruit the way that they were before because the caliber of man isn't what it used to be. Most of our
Right.
lodges are filled with people that are much younger and don't have the same value system, things like that. That's what they're finding out. Now,
Right.
I
And
answered
what
my
I
first.
real quick here, what I see here is you talked about the 7 steps, the 7 sciences, and the different rooms and stuff. And the caliber that we're talking about here, in the way I see it, is I'll symbolize it through the chakra, the
Okay.
7 levels of the chakra. If your
Yeah.
chakras aren't in line, then you're not going to mesh well with somebody else whose chakra is in line.
Right.
Those that have their alignment right align well. Those that don't, they bounce off each other and end up skewed. And that's part of the problem of getting that chakra in line. Back to that adage that my mom told me, Keith, if you want to learn how to fly like an eagle, why are you hanging with them turkeys? You know, and that's basics of it.
Well, I think I have one major question that I feel wraps all this up for me. The Masons have a history of rebellion. They they have a history of really sticking it to tyrants. Where are they? Where are they? We need them. What's going on? You don't have to disseminate the information from your lodges, but you could for damn sure restore the culture that you created. And
Yeah.
tomorrow night, I'll be live again at 8:30 with Daryl Caraway, who is a former Master Mason in, I believe, Virginia. And and it's one of the questions I'll be asking him because I think what we're finding out is that everybody seems to think that there's a divide in the Masons, that there are good Masons and bad Masons. And the more talking that I do and the more research that I do, I believe I'm absolutely starting to agree with that. I believe that there are lodges with really good people that are really trying to do good things, and then there are some powerful Masons that are just the enemies of America.
Right. Daryl made a comment last night, and this is where he's at tonight. Is he's doing he's serving 150 meals for people that are poor and stuff. And I think one of the
Yep.
concepts some of these guys miss is that because of these bankers and this monetary system, and from my own experience of having families torn apart, that is why we have a lot of those families that need that help. Some of these
Yep.
people are destroying these families, and whether they realize it or not, granted, he's out there serving people in his aspect, helping them, but he needs, in my hopes, he needs to comprehend the reality that those keeping of secrets and using them against us is part of what's tearing this country apart. It's part of what's making this country a shithole.
Yeah. I mean, we're talking about the group that is responsible for creating the culture and everything else. I mean, I think I went through industry giants, visionaries, architects, academics, intellectuals, everybody. And now the country is in the state that it's in, and the Masonic orders still exist. So where are they? Where are the powerful Masons that want to adhere to the oaths that they gave in their lodges and resurrect the compass of the nation, and really stand on that strength and endurance that's in that's symbolic of the pyramids. I mean, they have to be watching a nation in decline just like the rest of us. So where are they?
Yep. Probably in the Four Corners state with those right angles.
Hey,
You know,
I wish a
we
lot of
have
people would.
we have underground tunnels that go through this country from coast to coast, and most of them run through those four states. Just a thought.
Yeah, talk to the Russians. They'll tell you all about the tunnels we have running underneath our lands, man. Straight up. Man, I
All
appreciate
right.
your time tonight. I appreciate us being
Yeah.
able to get into this, and I really hope that people dive into the information that you were saying. I hope that doesn't go over their heads too much, and you know they kind of discount it, because there's so much virtue in what you had to say when we're talking about the etymology of the words and what's been taken out of language. This directly relates to your ability to translate the symbols that you see in front of you every single day. So please
Yeah.
just keep doing what you're doing, brother. I appreciate you, man.
Yeah, I appreciate you too. I, I, I quit the commercial system 4 years ago specifically so I could help figure this out because I knew, like I said earlier in the video, this is my problem. And if I don't know how to use it, then of course they're not going to let me into that castle. Of course they're not going to give me a key. So I've got to find the key myself. And that's as basic
Yeah.
and simple as it gets,
Well, you've
This is
done a
one of those real
fantastic job.
I hope so. And yourself as well. You do great research, and that's one of the foundations of coming to this realization is you have to do your own research. Like I tell people all the time, do not believe the government. Do not believe me. Do not believe fools that are telling you anything, including Jeremy here. We are idiots.
Yep.
You need to do your
Yep.
own research.
Do it
So,
yourself. Absolutely.
yep. So God bless, brother. Thanks for coming on. I hope
God
everybody
bless you.
enjoyed tonight's video. Please share it. I think it's got a lot of value packed into it with all the information. Like I spoke to Brother Jeremy here, it's great to be able to communicate back and forth and bounce ideas off so we can show these comparisons and help you interpret what we're trying to convey, the symbolism that we're trying to put out there so you can interpret it in its proper sense, in the universal sense, in its divine source, where it truly comes from. And that is part of
Yeah.
the problem is that we're conveying it wrong, pure and simple.
Pure and simple,
So,
brother. Pure and simple, man.
so God bless everybody. One last time, you guys know, if it wasn't for you guys, I wouldn't be doing this. God bless you. I love you all. Have a great night.
God bless
Peace,
you all.
brother.
Love y'all. Peace.